I'm Darlene.
I'm Gabby. Welcome to the Cozy Corner podcast, where two chicas come together and bring it back to their childhood couches.
Talking about different topics all 20-something-year-olds face. So grab a drink, settle down, and let's get cozy. This week we're going to be talking about a little thing called adulting. But before we get into that, we're going to introduce you to our segment that's called ¿Qué pasó? Gabby, would you like to introduce this new segment? Tell them what it's all about?
Of course. So this segment is called ¿Qué pasó? And it's a phrase in Spanish that technically means what happened. Normally, we would use it in a conversational setting for catching up on lives, whether it's been a week, a day, whatever. So we wanted to bring it into the podcast because, like in a conversation on a couch, me and Darlene want to treat it the same. So we want to ask each other updates about personal things, worldly things, how it's affecting us, and what's been going on. So, Darlene, ¿qué pasó?
Yeah, so this past week has been pretty normal for me, working from home. But I did get to go to my school to pass out some food bags for my students and their families. I work at a nonprofit here in Guatemala, and all of our kids are from low-income families. So during this pandemic has been super, super tough on them. So I got to go to school and pass out those food bags, and that was really nice that I got to see some of my students. It made so much joy in my week.
I know you've been wanting to see them, and it's so nice that you were able to do that. I'm really happy that. Did you take any pictures?
I didn't. I just took pictures of, the food, like all the food that we were going to pass out, but I didn't take any photos like with my students. It was funny because you're supposed to stay distant, but one of my students, as soon as he came in, he ran and gave me a huge hug. So of course I wasn't gonna tell him no. I hugged him back. So that was really special. But then as soon as he left, him and his mom had given me a hug too, and then our principal, she gave our principal a hug also. But it was funny, like when they left, we showered ourselves in disinfectant, just to be precautious. But yeah, so that was something really cool that happened this week. What about you, Gabby? ¿Qué pasó?
So for me, this past week has been a little bit a mix of really slow and really fun, spontaneous. So it started off kind of in my new home. If you don't know, last week I told you guys that I moved into my new home, and it's just a lot of learning and a lot of patience because during the time of COVID and a lot of things are on delay. I purchase an item and it's like, okay, it'll get here by December 4th. And for me and anybody, you just want to feel cozy in your home already. That's funny how I said the word cozy. Not trying to push the word cozy, guys. But I was kind of in my head. I was getting a little foggy, and my boyfriend, he spontaneously on Thursday, which was funny because me and Darlene were supposed to have a meeting, and I ended up totally flaking because of the spontaneous date my boyfriend took me on. It was nice. It was nice because I needed to get out of the house. I didn't even know I needed it, and we actually went to a farm to table restaurant here in Leander. And if you're out in Texas, I'm sure there's a lot of farm to table places, but this place was amazing. It was so fresh. The prices were pretty reasonable, which is where they're not trying to just be popular. They're very much for the environment of farm to table aspect. So that was awesome. We shared chicken rellenos, fish tacos, and a peach cobbler, which I'm pretty sure the peach cobbler was from Fredericksburg because Fredericksburg peaches are the best. So that was really fun. And then the next couple of days, my mom and my stepdad came, and he does flooring, but we also did a spontaneous trip to Topgolf, which is kind of controversial because a lot of people, again, like you were saying, social distancing, it's hard to function outside of your home, but again, even my mom, she's been working at for school. She's been stressed. I wanted to, treat my stepdad for doing our floors for free. And I know I needed to get out of the house still. So Topgolf made it really awesome to be socially distant. Every other bay was vacant. And it was just so nice to feel normal. Um, I know that it's such a luxury to feel that because I think other places, even like in Guatemala, like it's so different. And just other people with whatever they have to do for jobs, they have to be probably more strict. So I felt at the end of the week very blessed, very grateful for everything I have. And been good. It's been a good week. I'm starting this week off feeling better than I did last week. And so that's all that matters.
Awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. Just hearing you like talk about being with your mom, that makes me miss my mom.
Ah,
Last week when you told me you were going to go with her, I felt, I don't know, I felt so happy for you. As if that you hadn't seen your mom in years. I don't know. That's how I feel because I haven't seen my mom since December. So I'm very, very happy for you and I can't wait till I get to, do those fun things with my mom too. My family.
yeah, of course. So, next on our podcast is our main topic.
Yeah, so adulting. What exactly is adulting? I did a Google research, and according to Google, it says adulting is to carry out one or more of the duties and responsibilities expected of fully developed individuals. So, like paying off that credit card debt, buying a car, having a steady job, things like that. It's basically when you do things that make you feel like an adult. Um, I think in this time, it's become more of a trend to use that word throughout social media. Hashtag adulting, and then people, show their meal that they just cooked for themselves or the laundry that they just folded. Um, but
Yeah.
all in all, it's a reality. We all have to become adults,
Yeah.
right?
That's so true. I feel like my first, it's hard to think back because even I think you were saying social media, I think even teenagers, when they do one thing that's somewhat of taking responsibility, they're like, I'm becoming an adult, hashtag adult. But for me, I think my big hashtag adult life moment was I got so I was pretty cushioned my freshman year of college. I didn't have a job. I didn't have to worry about buying. So I went out of state for college. Didn't have to worry about plane tickets or anything like that. But second year, I became an RA because my family was like, okay, this is where you start learning how to budget and, you can get your own flight tickets back home. You can do whatever you want with this money. This is money you've earned, blah, blah, blah. And it was funny because the first Thanksgiving that came around, I remember feeling when I was online, I had never been to AmericanAirlines.com, and I'm typing in my information and my credit card. I think it was honestly one of my first, because online shopping wasn't a thing. I don't think for me in my world, like
Yeah.
but like, so putting in my credit card information, I felt if I had, which I don't even think I had an Instagram then, because I got Instagram late. If I had an Instagram, it would be hashtag adult, buy my first plane ticket back home. And then also a big one that I wanted to share was, I think it was the next year, there was a Macklemore concert in a nearby state. I was in Ohio, it was in Detroit, Michigan. So me and my friend, we saved up two of our paychecks to go to this concert. We like rented a car, stayed at a Super 8, and we had this whole experience. And in hindsight, it was kind of like, my God, I spent way too much money on an experience that I could have, been more of an adult now. But yeah, I think when you just get a paycheck and you like feel so empowered to, you have so many options to pay for whatever. That was probably my big adult moment.
Yeah, I don't think that those should be like a regret or anything. I think now it's a story to share. I have like a very similar story. Me and my friend, we were desperate to go to a Taylor Swift concert like in 2012.
Mhm.
Or maybe it was 2011. Um, And we tried so hard to win tickets on the radio, like by doing those contests or like calling in, whatever, but we never won. So we were like, let's just buy a ticket. But it was sold out in San Antonio. So we bought a ticket in Houston, but we didn't have anywhere to stay. So it was just an adventure. We were like, okay, we're driving. It was our first road trip, like by ourselves. We ended up staying at like a dorm that her brother, one of her brother's friends that studied at Rice University, we stayed at her dorm. Like, yeah, no, those are adventures. That was probably the most I had spent on anything in my life, over $100. So, but I don't regret it.
Yeah.
Something, I mean, maybe it's like stupid at the time, but what an experience that we enjoyed.
Yeah.
But for me, really, my first like where I felt where I could use the hashtag adulting, or where I felt like an adult was when I bought my car. During my college years, I didn't have a car. I had let my sister use my car because I lived on campus, and I worked on campus too, so I didn't really need a car. And if I wanted to go somewhere, I of course went with my friends. So, but when I graduated, I moved back home to New Braunfels with my family. I worked in San Antonio, and so without a car, it was impossible. So I had to buy a car. So that was my first hashtag adulting um,
It's a big deal. No,
scenario.
that's huge. That's car payments, like
No fun.
all the responsibilities of a car. It's for those people who are listening and you don't have a car and you like, if you're in high school, I feel like in high school, well, I had a car paid for. So again, I had like this luxury, but owning
Same. Same here.
so stressful. It really is a blessing, but stressful. So there is so Darlene did magic researching, and in the dailymail.com, they surveyed 2,000 young adults. And according to the survey, the top sign of adulting is having a steady job. But following that is being financially dependent, paying your own bills, paying rent or mortgage on your own, paying for your own car, budgeting monthly expenses, filing taxes, cooking your own meals, moving out of your family home, and being on time for work. That's really funny that being on time for work like specifically is in there because there are so many people. Because it's like I think adulting overall is like you struggle through it. There's no, yes, I think certain people just have skill levels and like talents of being really skillful in budget world, or what would that be for being on time? I think there are people that like have a chronic thing with like not being on time, like scheduling out their life. It's like they function as an adult, but like, how do you not be on time to things? Because
Yeah.
I'm the exact opposite. I'm 5 minutes early. I'm always on time. If I'm late, I feel so bad, and I've always been like that. Um, I feel like that comes with like maturity, though. I feel like when we were talking about this, bringing it to the podcast, I always had this thought of there's adulting, which is all these things that the Daily Mail said. But then in my eyes, I'm like, well, there's a maturity level that has to be as equal to really be adulting. I think when you bought your car, it's not like your parents were like, okay, yeah, like they had to have known that like Darlene is ready, she's mature, she's responsible, because there you could have, if you weren't mature and you get a car, you could easily lose your car by not paying it on time and
Mm-hmm.
that. So I just wanted to like put that out there because I know that it's like maybe a slightly different topic because maturity is maybe another thing, but I view it as like it has to be parallel with these responsibilities.
Of course, I agree. I agree with you. If you're not mature enough to pay off or to pay monthly payment for a car, for example, um, then yeah, you're gonna lose it, and it's gonna be a waste of money for you, a waste of time too.
Right.
But I want to go back to when you're talking about being on time for work. Me too, I have always been like a 10-15 minute early type of person. But that's how I grew up. My mom, she was always leaving the house an hour earlier than we had to, or being the first people there. So, to me, I think it's more of like how you were raised.
Mm.
Because now, when I think about now that I'm married and I have my husband who's always late, I have fallen into that habit. Of course, because we go together and we honestly, yeah, and also we work together too. So now working at school, this year has been different, of course, working from home, but the past 3 years going to school, I would get to school right at 7. That's when school starts. So I really think that it has to do with the way that you grew up as well when it comes to being on time for work, and how you said, like, people are just like that. People are always late, and they don't schedule their mornings correctly. But at the beginning that was super hard for me because I'm such a like scheduled person, and I like to be early and I like to be on time. But I've kind of become more lenient since moving to Guatemala. And in Guatemala, that's the culture. There's like a thing called chapin time. Time is like tiempo de chapin. Chapin is like Guatemala. Guatemalan people is how you say,
Uh-huh.
or Chapin is Guatemalan people. So the Guatemalan people are always late, like an hour late. The party starts at 8, but everyone doesn't show up till 9. So it's very
That's
cultural too.
funny because that's exactly how it wasn't called Chapin, but Miami. I think it's like it has to be maybe because even in my mom's side of the family, which we're like Mexican culture, it's
Yeah.
very much like relax, like it's fine. But mostly in like Western culture, you have like rules, blah blah blah. No, but that's so true about changing. Like now that you're married, and yeah, you obviously have like new habits. I guess that would be
Yeah.
it. Um, because I would like to say that you were saying earlier, like hashtag adulting, like social media, like bringing it into social media again. When people do hashtag, I think it's called, I don't know what's popular, but like struggles, like the struggles with adulthood and like your what people expect from you versus what you do. Like I feel like I relate to that because even sometimes I feel more of a slacker as an adult with adult things than I did as high school student, and like being front row and just taking my notes. Like now I'm like, okay, do I need that? I'm like so kind of all over the place, but that's what I think adulting is.
That is hilarious. I feel 100% with you on that, like slacking as an adult. The same when you think about it, high school, like I would never turn in something late, or like I would always do my homework. But now, yeah, like slacking on like taxes, or slacking on worrying about, for me in my case, voting from abroad has been like so not stressful, but it's just a matter of figuring out what you have to do. I've been slacking on that. I finally turned it all in and I'm ready to vote. But but yeah, it's so true. I feel the same way.
Yeah, so hashtag struggles are real. But to continue on with our stories of adulthood, what was your, I guess, after buying a car and now being in your, well, we're in our late 20s technically, but in from the time you bought a car, what was your adulthood like from there?
Yeah, so my first signs of adulthood.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I bought a car. That was definitely my first hashtag adulting moment. I also got a full-time job right out of college. Well, like a couple months out of college. Um, that was another hashtag adulting, like going into work at 8, leaving at 5, getting home. Um, but really, a lot of my hashtag adulting moments happened when I got married. And that's because before getting married, I was still living with my parents. And same with my husband. He was living with his parents too. So, in the moment that we got married, we both separated from our families and we became one. And that's where we really did all of our first adulting moments. Um, which was kind of special that we got to do that together. That we got to grow in adulthood together. Um, but in that, of course, we've rented an apartment, a tiny apartment, which is a funny story I'm going to share. um, our first grocery shopping trip, that is another whole story. Um, we bought a car together. So it was my second car, but this time it was with my husband. Cooking meals for Edwin, those kinds of things, cleaning our house together. Those are kind of the things that I see as like being an adult. Um, in Guatemala, I've been kind of like in the back, what is it, like the back end of all these things. Like I don't really know much about the taxes or doing forms like turn for the bank, all that stuff. I've just kind of been like a sidekick with Edwin, which has been such a blessing that he's there for me in all of this. I don't know. Well, first off, I don't think I would ever have moved to Guatemala if it weren't for him, being in a different country. But it has been really a blessing, like him being there with me and us doing this adult thing together. Um, yeah, so those are some of my first signs of adulting. What about you, Gabby?
So I love again how we have such different paths. We've always gone
Yeah.
down paths. So with me, I went straight into grad school, or I chose to go straight into grad school right after undergrad. And a lot of my family members were expecting me to start a job because they wanted me to go on a trajectory of get a job, you save up, then, because I think that's all what they did. And I decided I wanted more education, and I wanted it in a big city. And that was also something I think they supported to a point of caution because Miami, Florida is jokingly, a lot of people say like not America because it's just a whole little culture hub of completely different things, especially in the state of Florida. But I craved it so much. And so moving there, I had to get my own house. And mind you, coming from a very small town, undergrad, everything was basically done for me. I had guidance counselors. I took advantage of being in academia world. With grad school, they're very much hands off. Of course, I could go into meetings and ask for help, but as a grad student, it's like a different level of you kind of got to do everything on your own. So, mind anyone that goes into grad school, that there's like just a fair warning that they expect you to do things on your own. So I had to get my own housing, and I ended up living with three other people. Two of them were full blown working professionals in their early 30s, which was super different for me because again, I was like you. I lived on campus in dorms, so it was different, energy of okay, I'm living with actual adults as I'm entering adulthood. I decided, or I not decided, I knew I wanted to get a job, and I decided to get one outside of the school because with being in a new city, I was like, I need to make friends. I need to have community because that's really like important to me. So I became a cook at a cafe that I ended up being shift manager for, which was like 3 years later. Um, which I mean, yes, I had a job in high school, but I think it's on a different level when I had to manage grad school. I had to manage grad school also for being in the film program. It was a lot of out of school hours. So having a job, living with roommates that weren't my age, and then my car, I decided to get a Jeep. What was it? Commander. And if you don't know cars, it had a Hemi engine, which made it be 14 miles a gallon. At the time of me getting it, I was like, no big deal. I'm gonna live in a city. Like I barely use it. No, definitely, Miami's a driving city. Like, yeah, you can take the metro, but I needed to drive, and a lot of complications and just dealing with the Jeep. It lasted me all 5 years I was there, but dealing with that was like super huge. And again, like not to say being single was a deterrent, But figuring things out on my own, I always, was like, oh, I wish I had a boyfriend, like now that I do, I'm like, wow, I feel blessed. Because just to have a second hand at something, like a second person. But
Exactly.
dealing with all that on my own was a little bit stressful, but we are here and hopefully thriving. Um,
Yeah, I think that's what's so cool about us and our friendship, that we both took these different paths. We have totally different perspectives also, I think, on life and like different things that we lived through, because now, I mean, yeah, I always had Edwin throughout my adulthood, I guess you could say. You have been doing everything on your own. So it's really cool listening to our different
I know.
perspectives, our different stories.
I'm like super excited to hear this funny story with you and Edwin. I've only read a little bit on the script, but I'm like dying to hear it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so first off, I'm gonna talk about our first shopping trip. So when I first moved here, we lived in the apartment that that he lived with his parents. His parents had already moved out, but we were there um, for the first 2 months. So yeah, we get there and we have. Luckily, we had all the furniture that was there from his parents, and we had everything. Um, ready for us. But of course, we needed to go grocery shopping because we needed to have food for ourselves. So we did our first grocery shopping trip. I think we made a list. I don't remember honestly, but I'm sure it makes sense that we made a list.
Yeah.
And we go into the grocery store and literally we just like walk down every aisle. I think we were walking around like lost puppies. This was, for me, it was my first time shopping, like making a big list and shopping by myself. But of course, I was with Edwin, but I mean, without my parents. Because,
Right.
you grow up going to the grocery store with your parents, they have a list and you just push the cart or you just help, you're kind of just there. But this time we had to be in charge. So of course we get everything on our list, and of course we add, oh, this looks good, this looks good. Two things I do remember buying from that shopping trip were Oreos and ice cream. And we were just, yeah, like, oh, I love Oreos, oh, I love ice cream. And in the end, we ended up spending over, I'm sure, $200. And we were like, oh my gosh, I think next time we need to actually stick to our list. So it was a learning experience. But now it's funny because a couple of weeks ago, I had told Edwin, I am craving Oreos. And so last week he went to the grocery store like by himself. I didn't know he was going. Um, and he brought me back a gift and I felt it and I was like, these are Oreos, aren't they? So I opened it and there were the Oreos. And it's funny because the last time we had ever bought Oreos from the grocery store was that first shopping trip. So yeah, so we were like laughing about that trip. Just this past week we were talking about it. Um yeah, we tried to stay pretty healthy like throughout, so we were like we don't really need those in our house. So, but
A little
it
doesn't hurt.
yeah, exactly. And being stuck at home, I need that. I need those sweets. So yeah, that was my first crazy story about shopping.
So for me, I decided that everything in Home Goods was mine and that it needed to be in my apartment. And I think it was like Home Goods and Marshalls, and like they're pretty good deals, but like again, not the, I mean, it's substantial prices. And, with my paycheck, I was like, I'm good. Like, this is like, I'm nesting, I made all these excuses for why I needed like posters and art and a beanbag chair. And my friends in Miami, they will make fun of me to this day because they say, Gabby, you buy things and then 2 months later you're over it and you end up donating it to one of us. They were like, you need to stick with getting one thing that's like purposeful. And I recognize that about myself in adulting. Like when you have this like power, not power, but it's like when you have like, oh, I have this money, ABC money in my checking. Let me just, yeah, like I need, and decorating. And it's like, I don't know, I'm like a dreamer. So maybe I just get too lofty in my dreams.
Yeah, you make excuses, like you said.
I'm just like, wait, okay. So now when I'm like in my home, I'm being so extra. Like, I don't need it. Like my home, I've been 2 weeks now and I've only bought 3 pieces of furniture. Like I'm just very, I mean, and it's good, right? It's a balance, right? My boyfriend is saying, Gab, like you really like that one thing you said. I was like, I don't need it. Let me, if it's there the next week, it's meant to be. I really try to structure my life and like what can be like a function versus,
Hmm.
but I guess it really wasn't funny.
No, but I mean, those are like things that you learn from. Yeah, now you have become more of a minimalist.
But what about you? So y'all lived in that teeny tiny apartment.
Oh
What
my gosh.
I think,
So yeah, like I said, we lived in an apartment that his parents had lived in with Edwin. Um, but we couldn't stay there because the rent was like super high. And so we as soon as I had moved there, we started searching for a new place to live. And we found this teeny tiny apartment, actually in the same neighborhood that we're living in now, just a street away. And in this neighborhood, it's called La Montaña, which means the mountain. So we're literally living in a mountain. And I mean, it's not like here's a mountain and we live on top of it, but our neighborhood is in a mountain. And so there's like a river down below that in the apartment we lived like kind of off the river. It wasn't like a river that you can go down and swim, but it was there. You can hear it. And the tiny apartment that we lived in, it was originally like a big house, and the owners just made it into mini apartments. So it was really just like one room, and they built walls, some walls for the bedroom and walls for the bathroom. So it was like four sections in the house, like the living room, the bedroom, the kitchen slash dining room, and then the bathroom. So it was so tiny. And but I was like, it's okay, we're just getting started. I mean, it's okay to live in a tiny apartment. When we get older, we can talk about all the time we lived in the tiny apartment, So yeah, we had the furniture from the original apartment, but all that furniture didn't fit. So we were like, well, let's go buy new furniture. So we spent so much money on a sofa bed, on a like entertainment set, on just like little things that we really didn't even need to buy since we had everything from his parents. So it's like, well, that's another money mistake that we have made in our lives. But now we just laugh about it because we're living in a house now and we're able to fit all that furniture that we had originally plus the furniture that we bought. So the thing with that tiny apartment though, we had made like a 1 year lease, but we got out after 2 months. But it's because I was feeling sick and I couldn't breathe because of all the humid, and it was just not a good environment. So thank goodness we were able to get out because of that excuse and find a better place to live. So, thinking like, oh, it's okay, we're just getting started, staying in a small home. Maybe that's not the best thing for everybody.
right. It's so interesting how like we rationalize our decisions in the moment. And it's, in hindsight, yeah, maybe if you told your mom this story, right, I could see her being like, Darlene, I could have told you A, B, and C. It's like, well, mom, you weren't me. You weren't this age in this moment in life. For me, like being, I guess, wasteful with money and like things. Obviously, I have my shopping thing that I talked about, but also with like functioning things like going grocery shopping. When I lived on campus, you have a meal plan and you're not worrying about what's being wasted or any of that. And so I thought in my mind, I need to get a month's worth of groceries. Like that was, I don't know why in that processed, I need to get produce for a month. Like Gabby, bananas don't last a month. They're going to bad. Like, I opened my fridge one day and it's just like reeks. And I'm like, what smells? And then I'm like, oh yeah, the bottom drawer vegetables, like I was constantly buying and then again, as adulting will, bop you in the head. Like it's trial and error. Like by every month I recognized, oh, okay, let me buy like produce. I lived in walking distance to a grocery store, mind you. I could walk weekly to get fresh, you know what I mean? Fresh produce, fresh things. And so I mean, I am really happy Brett does the curbside now because he he has a better budget in mind for food because I like what you and Edwin do or did y'all's first time walking around all the aisles. So dangerous. Like you gotta stay in the what is it? They say the parameters around the grocery store are really what you need. The inside aisles are like the processed, the chips, the crackers, the cookies. And I always get stuck in those aisles because I'm like, oh, I need this, I need that. But it's like
Exactly. The cravings fit in when you're there, and you never go to the grocery store on an empty stomach.
so true. And have you done that many times? Yes, but it,
Yeah.
so in conclusion, what has been something you want to work on for the future of like adulting that like you have it in your planner that you struggle with that you want to work on?
I struggle definitely with keeping a budget. Me and Edwin both. We pay off all of our bills at the beginning of the month. As we get paid monthly, so and we get paid the very last day of the month. So when it's the first day of the month, the next day, we pay everything that we our bills, and then we kind of just like wing it from there. We just wing it and we do what we want really. But then by the end of the month we're like waiting for our next paycheck. So that's something that we both really need to work on, is like keeping a monthly budget, and sticking to it. That way we're not worried about money at the end of the month or like waiting for our next paycheck. So definitely budgeting is what I'm struggling with and what I need to work on. What about you? What are you struggling with?
I think for me, it's kind of ties in with budgeting, but it's more so like I was like super happy when I got approved for a Target credit card. Like I have a problem with remembering to pay things off, and that can bite you in the booty sometimes when it's like if you really forget. Like it hasn't been obviously too bad. Like it's just I paid it off a week late, but then like you get that extra charge and it's sucks because it's like that money, was extra. So for me, um, and yes, I know people are like, there's auto pay, but I think for me, what I try to challenge myself with is like how you and Edwin will get together at the beginning of the month. Mine's at the end of the month, and like I want to get at the end of the month and like kind of go down the checklist because it will help me remember, which is obviously I'm struggling with. But yeah, so that's kind of something that I intentionally try to do.
Oh, you'll be able to accomplish that.
Thank you. Moving into adulthood is inevitable. We all must grow up and become adults, right? Social media can be a scary platform to fall into the hole of comparison, but don't let it discourage you. Everyone is on their own path.
Everything is trial and error, and you won't always get everything right the first time. Also, there isn't a right or wrong for the way you do things as you grow up.
You will have your ups and downs, just like everything else in life. There isn't a handbook on how to be an adult. Just take it one step at a time, and things will fall into the place they are meant to be.
So now, moving on to our preguntas segment, as we introduced last week. Preguntas is questions in Spanish. Each one of us is going to ask a question for each other. So, Gabby, would you like to get started?
Yes. So, mi pregunta for you, Darlene, is if you had a movie made about your adult life, who would you want to act as your character and Edwin's? I threw Edwin in because he's been in the majority of your adult life. So, I would love to see that.
Oh man. I would love to have this is funny. Okay, I think hold on.
I know. It's a good question.
I love Jennifer Aniston. And probably the guy who plays Ross because they are so cute and they were meant to be together. I don't know his name, like David something.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I'm not even a Friends fan. I mean, I'm a fan, not a psycho fan.
Oh my gosh, I watched Friends like when it was on Netflix. You know, I didn't like it. Well, I didn't care for it really before. And then one of my roommates was watching it all the time and she was obsessed. And that annoyed me, so I didn't want to watch it. But then I just gave into it when it was on Netflix and I watched the whole thing and
I feel
it's
like I can watch it. I just am like neither here or there. Like if it's on, it's on. But Jennifer Aniston and the guy who plays Ross, I like. I can see that. I see the vision.
I know. I'm not very good with actors and their names, so Jennifer Aniston, yeah, the guy who plays Ross. For me and Edwin. Mi pregunta es for you, Gabby, is when you have nothing planned for the day, for example, a weekend, like on a Saturday, what's your favorite thing to do?
My favorite thing, I was just yesterday. It's going to sound funny, but my personal, because maybe I have been single the majority of my life, I simply enjoy going to department stores on my own. I love having my cart, maybe my Starbucks venti pink drink, and I just like cruising down aisles. And guys, I promise you, I don't have a shopping problem anymore. I'm very balanced with it, but I love going to a Nordstrom Rack or, I mean, Home Goods is my best friend. Like, I will actively just, yes, I can say Netflix and I can say hanging out, but no, that is something that's like, I do enjoy doing that. Strolling down a good department store, especially when it's seasonal. No,
How fun.
I love it.
Those are the things I miss about living over there. Living, I'm
And
gonna those are the things that I miss about living in Texas, like going to Target, going to J.C. Penney's or something like that. Here, we don't have anything. So you should move to Guatemala so you can keep away from department stores if that's what you want to do.
ultimately, yeah. But it has been so nice, this whole conversation with you, Darlene. And I think we need to wrap things up with an intention for the week. So each week, guys, we want to share some light and positivity to you all and bring you with an intention. So this week, we want you to think about that one thing you're struggling with in your adult life. And if you're maybe not nearly in adult life, just one thing that you're struggling with that you want to kind of better yourself for. Maybe it's keeping your house or room clean. Maybe it's sticking to a budget, or you want to save up for something important that's coming up. Or maybe something you've been eating too much of. Um, that's actually, I just think in general, just like well being, what's something you want to try something new to cook, whatever it may be, your intention to go towards improving your life.
Okay, so now we're getting towards the end of our podcast. Um, Thank you guys for listening and joining us today as we talked a little bit about our adulting life, our adult life that we are still trying to figure out. Next week, we're going to be talking about the number one talked about topic of the year. Can you guess what it is? Drum roll, please. COVID or quarantine, right? Our times during this year has changed drastically. So we're going to be sharing our thoughts, our experiences, especially since we're living in two different countries and the experiences are very different, and how we've dealt with it. So that is our topic for next week. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We're just two besties navigating life like the rest of y'all.
And we're excited you've joined us on this journey. Please feel free to contact us on our Instagram, the.cozycornerpod,
or our email, thecozycornerpod@gmail.com. and we'll be happy to connect with you. For now, God bless, take care, and adios,
Adios, amigos.
amigos.